Okay guys, this is what you've been waiting for. I haven't done one in a while, so I am going to transform a boxwood, just an old lanky boxwood, into a topiary form. I'm going to show you how I do it, how I support it, and how I'm planting it. So number one, I've got a large enough container here for this pot. It will be just slightly larger than the circumference and the root ball of this pot. I think it's maybe a 2.5 gallon. And I'm just putting it into a terracotta pot. Now in my zone, I'm in zone 7. Yes, I can leave my terracotta pots out year round. They may not last as long if we have a really harsh winter or something, and there are sprays that you can use on them to make them a little bit more long lasting, but I have had pretty good success with it, and if it ages over time, then I just replace the pot. So this is a beautiful rolled rim pot, and you can see I've already gotten some dirt in it and a little bit of gravel at the bottom, so this is going to have really good drainage. Now I just picked up this. It's a Golden Dream boxwood. And you may note that I don't have a lot of variegated boxwood in my landscape, and I don't think I have any in topiary form. So that's why I selected this one. Now, if you look closely, ideally, this may not have been my perfect candidate for the garden because you can see that the roots are kind of exposed. But in my experience, that doesn't necessarily mean the plant is in any way damaged when I buy them in a potted form like this. I think probably this was just subject to some high winds, and that's why it's kind of leaning a little bit towards the east. But you can also see down at the bottom, you can see that it's got what looks to be a strong central stem. So this is how I identify plants for topiary. And it also has a pretty tall leader. And what I mean by leader is the ultimate height that I want the plant to grow. So this one will have almost instant maturity. Now you can find these at all different price points. This one happened to be about $19.98 or around $20. And I think that's not too bad for something that I can instantaneously make into a topiary that will mature into a specimen that I would pay far more for in its finished state. So I have moistened both the soil in the pot and the root ball of this boxwood. And I'm not going to have to loosen the roots too much, you guys, because this isn't too pot bound. And that's something also that I check for when I am buying a potted plant. I kind of tug at it to see if it can be extricated pretty easily from the pot, because that means that there's not a lot of roots growing out of the bottom and that it's going to be happy to acclimate to my container. Okay, so you see I've got it there. Now this one is going to need a little bit more support, again, because it's kind of leaning. But I am going to help that with my stake. So I sometimes kind of hoard really good sticks and stakes. I keep them in my compost pile until I'm ready to use them, or on my wood pile. You guys can head over to the YouTube segment that I did on my compost pile. But this one is straight and it's very tall. So it will be a wonderful candidate for this boxwood. Now I'm putting that in again when the soil and the dirt is very moist. So, because I don't want to traumatize the plant any more than I have to. But almost immediately you can see that I've helped this plant stand up and fly right. So I'm going to take off that tag now. And you can see why this plant was an inspiration for me, because it already is going to have a pretty good double ball form. I could try to establish maybe a columnar form, and I could train these guys to grow up in that direction with some judicious clipping, but I think I really want that double form, which is probably the bald forms, the lollipops, the poodle shapes. Those tend to be my favorite forms. So I am going to get this potted, and I've got just a good quality potting mix. You guys a lot of times ask me what my favorite variety is, and my answer is typically whatever good quality organic potting soil I can find wherever I am. I'm not that particular. I do, though, want to give a shout out to this stuff that I was sent to try, and I really like this, you guys. I'm sent a lot that people want me to test, but I only show you the ones that I am really excited about, and I'm really excited about this stuff. It's called Pitt Moss. It's an organic potting mix, and it promotes beneficial biological growth and nutrition that uses 2/3 less water, and I just love the way it's made. It uses tree fibers. It's very organic. I think it's something you should look into. I'm planning on getting more of it. So I'm going to put the remainder of this bag in this pot. Excuse me for my little commercial, but you guys always ask what I use, so I want to be out there with what products I like to use. Okay, so now I'm going to finish filling this with potting mix, and because you guys know I practically always top dress, I should move this over so you can kind of see my face. I practically always top dress my topiaries with gravel. So I've left room for the gravel on top, and I have my stake in place. So I needed something to secure this leader to the stake, to the stick. And so I have some here. Now normally, I'll be honest, normally I would use something that is a little bit more subtle, that would blend in a little bit more, but I want to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing. And by the way, when I get finished, I'm going to put a whiteboard in front of it so you can exactly see the profile of the plant, because I know sometimes in my garden, with all of the other topiaries and greenery, it's kind of hard to see the form of the topiary I'm working on. So, okay, so now I'm going to take off my gloves, and I'm going to position this in a couple of places. It's important to position it towards about where the first ball is going to be, because it's really thick down here, and I want it to start growing in accordance with the stake. So I'm going to do that about right here, and this trunk of the boxwood is a little bit thicker. So and I can always go back later, you guys, and tighten these more or move the stake around a little bit. It's important not to be overly fastidious about this, because if you are, it makes you afraid, and you shouldn't be afraid, because it will grow out. And all of gardening is an experience, isn't it? So I'm going to take another piece of this, and this is just resin coated wire. And I'm going to secure this. Stuart, can you see that it's starting to look like? You guys always ask who Stuart is. Stuart is my man Friday. He's my buddy. He's my photographer. He keeps me honest. He tells me to smile. He makes fun of me. Okay, so there we go. So now you can definitely see, put the pretty part towards the front so you guys can see how full it is on this side, that this is going to be a nice sized topiary when I get finished. So now basically I am just going to establish its form. So if this is a double ball, and normally I'm doing a lot of this, you guys, a lot of this. to see where I want to make my first cut. Some of them are pretty obvious. I want the width, the ball, to be, I think, about right here, the bottom ball. Now how I can determine that is, because you can see right here, if you're trying to decide where to make that first cut, you can see right here I've got a pretty strong V right in there. And that is going to be the top of my bottom globe, my bottom ball. So that is where I'm going to make my first cut. And basically, this is where it starts coming off. I'm going to cut off first some of these outliers. I'm going to save these cuttings. And you guys have asked, how do you root cuttings to turn into topiary? And I'll do a video on that, maybe with a guest appearance by a friend of mine who is the queen of starting cuttings for topiary. She is much better than I at it. So, and she has a greenhouse, so a lot of times I let her do the work for me. Okay, so now I think I'm going to take this off. And these, now these are the kind of the ones where it'll be a little bit scary because they're bigger cuts, but just think that maybe you can grow that into a topiary and you need to expose the trunk. So I'm doing that. This will just keep on growing, but I'm going to tip the tops. I'm going to tip prune the tops so it will also start filling out. Every place you make a cut, it will get bushier. Okay, so I can see these over here need to go. A lot of times you'll get just singular outlier leaves that I can see right here. I need to attach another secure. This one isn't quite wide enough. Again, you can go back and modify later if you need to. And I'm just turning it around, looking at it, making it stand up straight. And now once I kind of have the definition and the placement of those two balls established, the work goes a little bit more quickly. And I am just tip pruning everything. When I come back and resecure this with some attachments that aren't quite that bright green, I'll do a little bit better job of it. You want to also kind of establish a slope going down so that you start establishing that curvature to the bottom ball. Let me show you another little tip, you guys. If you're still with me, hopefully you're still with me. And I've said it a million times and I'm going to say it again. I just find this so meditative and so therapeutic. I can really get in the zone with nothing but me and the birds to keep me company. Okay, so you can see on this side that it's pretty full, and that's good. On this side, not so much. But look what happens when I kind of move that. If I moved it in the right place, Stuart? So you can see how I can create artificial fullness there. So then what I'm going to do is do something to kind of attach this branch to the others so that it's full pretty much all the way around. Sometimes you can also do that by strategically tucking branches where you want them to grow. Now here's another tip, you guys. when you're placing this, and I think it already looks kind of pretty in a wonky topiary kind of way, but when you're placing it initially, even though I know our inclination is to always have the pretty part forward, but whenever you leave town or whenever you're not going to be out in your garden and it won't bother you, turn it. Turn the part that's not as full to the sun. That way it will start filling out and it will be symmetrical on both sides. It's those kind of little things that you learn over time. The more you grow topiary, that symmetry becomes important. Now, this is a variegated boxwood. I've also said a million times I've never met a boxwood I didn't like. I'm kind of a boxwood slut. But this is a variegated boxwood, and it can't handle quite as much intense sun as all green boxwood can. So this one can handle a little bit more shade if you need a topiary for the shade. And I also like the way that it's got that beautiful chartreuse color in it that I really like. Now later, I will probably top off, because this already has a pretty good height to it, and I don't think I'm going to want it to get that much taller. So probably I will get my loppers and I will top off this stake so it looks even and like it's not still aspirational to just keep growing vertically, that this is where I want it to grow. This is where it's going to top out. And I think, again, you can just keep clipping on it. And the more you clip, the tighter the ball will be on the bottom. But I think for right now, that is pretty good. So, because I already want it to look like it's in something of a finished state, I'm going to remove all of these leaves that are kind of outliers. And the nice thing about topiary, unlike any other kinds of flowering perennials or self-seeders, annuals, it doesn't mind all of this wind so much. It is sturdy and stalwart, and one of the reasons I just love topiary and evergreens. Okay, so if you guys can be patient, I'll be right back with some gravel. I'll top dress it and you can see it in its finished state. So we'll have to do a cut here.
Do a cut, but don't lollygag. I'm not going to stop it.
Okay. We don't have much.
And I'm going to leave me saying don't lollygag in there.
Are you?
Don't you lollygag,
okay, but
Linda.
where's my...
Where'd that name come from? Lollygag. It's weird, some words you just say, but you never question. Alright, I'll be quiet because I like hearing the rustling of the...
Okay, so I've got my gravel, you guys. Stuart just is the boss of me today. Told me not to lollygag. We were wondering where that expression even came from, lollygag. I don't know. But I got the point. Hurry up. Okay, so now it is beautifully top dressed with gravel. You guys, I love another tip. If I ever had a garden product line, I would make these scoops because they're wonderful for gravel, they're wonderful for soil. I haven't been able to find this similar one anywhere since. Okay, so now I'm going to water it. I saved some rainwater from last night. Actually, I didn't save it, the bucket did. So I'll water it to get it established. And then, voila, you can see that it's a topiary. It's a miracle. It's a topiary. I can still do a little bit more clipping on it, but I have a really good shape established. And there you guys go. How to take a shrub and turn it into a topiary form that will only improve over time.